welcome to another episode on our book podcast. I'll be bringing you another book journey from another best-selling author. This is the book entitled Millionaire Success Habits by Dean Graziosi. This is the book that claims to be the gateway to wealth and prosperity. Published in the year 2019. So I read this book a couple of months ago before I decided to put this into one of my book podcasts. I believe that this book is as essential as the previous books I have reviewed, even when I am not a fan of finance books because I have no wealth at the moment. I look forward that in years' time, I soon will be needing this. Like, yes, it's a big word, but you know what? The only people that may not be needing this are the billionaires. It would be a waste of time because they have passed the stage of millionaires and they had proved to be successful. The title is awesome, and for sure it had tricked many people into buying this book. The same thing that it had tricked me in choosing it among other books in my ebook library. Imagine, I read this first before I read Little Women. So basically, it's a 1,000-page book with 13 chapters full of topics on financial literacy, success stories of people who were able to reach their millions in their lifetime. It's also like an exercise book because I remember I had it still in my notepad, some exercises that I had done while I was reading this book. Like, for example, we have the 7 levels deep exercises. I was surprised on this part of the book on my 7th why, the 7th deep. Although it was not a shock, it's still not what I had expected. Note taking or writing down things is one step, I guess, to be a millionaire. What I like about putting it all down in paper is that it seems real, like legit. It's as if when you write the things you are good at, it's like I really did convince myself that I am good at it. For once, I tend to believe that this is just another self-help book. But it turned out not only to help me to write things, it also opened up my thoughts on receiving advices from other people. The author reminded me not to take advices from people who failed in some or many areas in their life. If you're actually seeking an advice, take it from a person who is successful, but not the person who is a loser or not the loser next to you. Just because people offer advices, it does not mean that you have to take them. But don't be rude. Be civil and smile. So this book is good as one's blueprint of habit forming. When you are out of the college and is unsure what to do, one might get a 1 or 2 inspiring thoughts from this book. I would always recommend to read a book than to scroll motivational quotes in Instagram or following success pages in Facebook. A book have more gems than those promotions. A book might be a promotion too, but more beneficial. After a while, on chapter 4, I was ready to write my success story. We are all sucker for success stories and like the underdogs who became billionaires. The story of, for example, the story of the boxing champion Manny Pacquiao, who came from a very poor family, worked hard in boxing, became a multimillionaire, and now he's a senator. So it's one of the best success stories I ever heard. But ordinary people could also have these success stories. Like the one guy who failed a bar exam or failed the bar exam once, and on his second take, on his retake, he ranked as a bar placer. Simply the story of my mother, who worked first as a house help before she starts to study in college, and now a retired teacher with sons and daughters who have stable jobs. Isn't it exciting to write your own story, your own success story, instead of listening to others? And it's nice to think about it. It's nice to think about it, really. I believe that if it is not yet a success story, then it's not yet the end. After a while, it seems to me that the book is no longer a finance book, but a motivational and a habit changing one. It is changing your state of mind, not how a millionaire thinks, but how to be positive, a hero, and a winner in all life's area. I cannot say how to be successful because for me, success is difficult to ascertain. It's like happiness. There are no certain parameters and it's too subjective. But of course, since the writer is an entrepreneur, majority of the perspective of the book relates to wealth. And success measurement in this book seems to be mostly indicated by how wealthy a person is. If you had read this book or is planning to read it, then most likely you're going to be successful. Why? Not because there is some sort of magic that the book has, but because in your mindset, you already have the desire to be wealthy. And that is the first step to becoming one. Having a vision and an idea on how to do it is vital. It's like telling the universe that you are preparing for all the blessing that is brewing up for you. Okay, so I love the title on chapter 7, which is Attraction and Persuasion. It's like a title of a classic romantic novel, but the context is not about romance. It's about being persistent and taking the momentum in becoming wealthy. I love how in each beginning of a chapter there is a quote from a successful person who was interviewed by the author. It's as if they are trying to say, I hope I will inspire you. The chapter on the power of happiness will make you wonder, is happiness a prerequisite to be successful or a reward of becoming successful? As for me, I don't want to deal much with concepts that relate to happiness because, as I have said before in my previous podcasts, it's difficult to assess being happy or to assess happiness. Happiness could be finding your self-worth, or it could be just a cup of ice cream, or it could be drugs even, for whatever reason. It's up to a person what is his or her subjective level of happiness. Others don't even know what is their happiness, and I can't judge them. There are happiness habits outlined by the author that might help the reader in becoming happy, just the basics and common guides. I say there is nothing magical or nothing that you haven't heard of yet. Of course, many of us rather wants quick hacks, and don't worry, many of that are available here in this book. You can see these quick hacks in any motivational sites, from the so called internet motivational vloggers, and even from the person next to you. What is special with the hacks here, where that there are sometimes samples. My best hack is in quote unquote spoil yourself randomly. According to the author, quote, if you stash cash and spend less on things that don't mean much to you, when it's time to spoil yourself on the things that really matter to you, you'll have money to do it. Unquote. I was doing this even before I read the book. I saved money for the entire week by not eating out and cooking my food. And then once in a while, I visit a posh restaurant or order a pricey coffee in a coffee shop, of course, and stay in that place for hours. Literally, like 4 hours or five, even. Then I observe people or open up my laptop or just hang around. And this is what matters to me, an experience that is out of the norm, which encourages me to work even harder so that I can visit as often as I want in this kind of places without the guilt that I am spending too much. Again, the hacks are common and you have to be careful not to depend on hacks all the time. Really. There's more to words in this life, people. With the words that you read in this book, it might make you feel envious of your current situation, which I find the greatest challenge on reading this. How not to resent the poor life I am currently in is harder than I had thought. While you take in those people who became successful in their fields, then I end up at times daydreaming, and I hope you'll not end up daydreaming too. I remember the first self help and motivational book I read was The Purpose Driven Life. I was in elementary at that time when a random person gave my mother a pocket sized version of that book, and I was still struggling with comprehension. And yet, I remember how it inspired me because I kept that book for a while. The second book I read, which I borrowed, was entitled The Secret. I was in junior year in high school, I guess, and amazed at stories of people who just asked the universe repeatedly of what they want, and then the universe gave it to them. That's how I understood it back then. I may have read lots of self help books, but that is no assurance that my life will be picture perfect someday, or that I'll also have a magazine worthy success story someday. After this book, I reminded myself not to immerse my thoughts and reading on another self help or motivational book for a while. The lessons are there, but living is not all about money or millions or success. Sometimes it's washing the dishes and making sure the sink won't clog, or that your life is simply all about breathing for today to see the sun shines again tomorrow. Every success story is different, unique, and have a different timeline. We have different lists of success. Mine as of today is being able to record this podcast and getting ready for the episode I am planning to upload next. Okay, so it's not the same as the success of the author of the book, but who cares? He doesn't even know that I exist. Closing this book podcast, I just want to thank the author, of course, for giving us this book. However, I still don't encourage readers to pay much attention to self help books if you have other plans in your life. Surely, You could read one or two in a year, and that's it. Read other books, maybe history, a Jane Austen's novel, or anything to entertain you. Your choice. Because there are more to life than self help books. Their titles are all shining like neon lights, like Purpose Driven Life, The Secret, The Power of Habit. But you already know the golden rule before even picking up this type of books. These books are not going to tell you to cheat, to be dishonest, to not love yourself, and to not be a good person. If you know the basic ethical and moral principles in life, then surely you're good. It's all where these self help books revolve. Nothing is new, nothing written is new. But a book to remind us again what are those principles will not harm us though. So it's your pick to read books like this. I say read at your own risk. Thank you for listening.